Most recently, a lot of your feud with Andy Kaufman's coming to light. I mean, it goes back, but more recently with the movie that came out a little while ago. How did that whole angle? I mean, for a long time, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was real. You know, I remember the whole David Letterman thing.
I mean, feel bad. I thought it was real too. So actually, that's a longer story than the Jimmy Hart story. So I'm going to try to really condense it. Andy Kaufman, a very talented individual, loved wrestling. Grew up as a kid, a big wrestling fan, and he was such a fan of wrestling that he wanted to incorporate it into his act. So he wasn't big enough to wrestle men or anything. So he thought it would be funny if he challenged ladies out of the audience. And he started doing that, getting girls to come up on stage and wrestle them and that sort of thing. And it went over, I mean, he enjoyed it, but it didn't really go over well with the people that come in to see Andy tell jokes or do comedy. So Andy got the idea that if he could wrestle some women in front of a wrestling audience, that would be his lifelong dream. So he actually approached Vince McMahon Sr. at the time, and Andy was from Long Island. He went to, I think it's the Nassau Coliseum, talked to Vince McMahon, told him his idea. And this time, Andy was the big star on Taxi and all that sort of stuff. And believe it or not, Vince McMahon said, well, he said, I think it would be a good idea, but he said, people are so skeptical of our wrestling. I'm really hesitant to bring an actor into wrestling because then the people might think we're all a bunch of actors. So he kind of turned Andy down. And just fortunately for me, a friend of mine named Bill Apter, who was a magazine and a wrestling magazine editor, overheard the conversation. He went to Andy and he said, I got a friend of mine named Jerry Lawler. He's got a territory down in Memphis, Tennessee. I think he might be interested in this. So that's how we hooked up. And Bill gave him my number. Andy calls and explained to me just what he told Vince McMahon. And so I said, yeah, come on down. I think it'd be great. And that's the way it started. First, Andy started wrestling women there at the Mid-South Coliseum. And it progressed. If you saw the movie, he finally wrestled this one girl that gave him a really tough time. And we also sold out. And so I thought, man, if I could get Andy to come back again, I'll ask him if he'll come back again. I'll give this girl some pointers, and maybe she would have have a return match. So Andy agreed to come back. I was in the girls' corner on the next match, sold out again. Andy still won again, but after it was over, he stayed on the top of this girl. So I just kind of went in, and since I was in the girls' corner and I was a big hero in Memphis, everybody was saying, "Come on, King, do something about this." So I go in and I just kind of grabbed Andy, pulled him to the side, and all of a sudden he flipped out. He says, "Oh, you can't touch me. You're a wrestler. I'm a Hollywood star. You can't do this. I'll sue you. I'll sue you." So it went from that, just that impromptu kind of thing, to where I'm thinking, this could be something more. This could be big. If I could get the rub off this Hollywood star, we might could get some national publicity. And sure enough, we wound up, I finally talked Andy into having a match. We wound up having that match, in which, of course, I pile drived him. He stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Then later on, we went on the David Letterman show, and had our little famous encounter there, where I wound up becoming the first talk show guest to ever slap or strike another talk show guest. And as a matter of fact, that scene was so famous that Monday, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be taping a segment in New York City for a TV Land special that is going to air in the month of December, the 100 greatest moments in the history of television. And that scene with Andy and I is one of the 100 greatest moments in the history of television. Now, when you think about the history of television, how many years it goes back, how many moments have there been in the history of television to be included as one of the top one?
Man landing on the moon.
Right, man. I mean, it's up there with man on the moon. Well, there you go. So it was really probably the biggest thing that ever happened in my career. I mean, I've wrestled, like I said, the guys from Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've wrestled them all, but probably my most famous match was with a 150-pound comedian, Andy Kaufman.
You talk about famous matches. When you first came into the WWE, you had a feud with Bret Hart.
I really enjoyed working with Bret Hart. He was the top guy in the WWE at the time, and it also helped my character, so to speak, develop in the fact that there was so much. My deal at the time, my shtick was the insults, the one-liners and everything. There was so much ammunition with the Hart family. Oh, man, Brett's mom and dad, Stu and Helen Hart. I mean, I can think of every old joke in the world that I could use on them. Then his entire family, he was like, it was I love them, but they put the fun in the word dysfunctional. They were the most dysfunctional family you'd ever see. So it was a lot of material. Brett, of course, was the top guy. So working the thing with Brett it was really good, and it really helped launch me right there when I first came into the WWE in 1993.
working with JR, I mean, you guys have set the standard for wrestling broadcasting. I mean, when you look at, famous teams, I mean, obviously JR and the King. I mean, looking back, did you think you'd be commentating for this long, or did you, I mean, it's been going on for a while now. I mean, did you think that it would last this long and you'd be just successful as you've been?
I really didn't even think about it when I started doing it, because I actually started doing the commentary as almost as a last-minute emergency kind of situation. And before I was doing it, if you remember, Randy Macho Man Savage and Vince McMahon were doing the commentary on the TV shows. And so, as a matter of fact, it was in an area not too far from here, near the Pocono Mountains. I think that we were doing the show one night, and I was getting ready to wrestle somebody, and everybody said, "Okay, we're going to be on the show in we're going to go on in about an hour. Has anybody seen Randy Savage?" And all of a sudden, somebody comes in and says, "Vince, Randy Savage is on the other channel. He's on WCW right now." That's how he left, without any notice. Nobody knew he was going. And Vince came to me and he said, "King, can you help me do the show tonight?" And I've been doing it ever since. So it wasn't something that I went there intending to do or really even wanting to do. I actually would prefer wrestling, but they seem to like my commentary better than they do my wrestling. So it's a great gig in the fact that I don't have to travel as much as the other guys. I don't have to be on the road so much. And, of course, I still, right in the midst of all the action. Raw is just looked last week, we were right up there with one of the football broadcasts. But Raw was number 2 and number 3 highest rated shows on cable television. And it's good. I don't think about how long it's lasted. I just think I don't worry about it ever ending, Right.
Now, outside of the ring, I mean, obviously you're accolades in the ring, but outside the ring, you're an accomplished artist, illustrator. You're going to work with Mick Foley on his Christmas book. Any plans to do any illustrations, come out with your own book with some of the things that you've created?
Well, actually, I have an idea that I'm in the process of pitching to the book publishers. The WWE has a great deal with Simon & Schuster, and they've put out a lot of books. Of course, my own autobiography and that sort of thing. But now, a lot of the different talent get the opportunity to pitch ideas for more books. And so I had one in mind that would entail not only my artwork, but some of the one-liners, some of the jokes, some of the things that I've used over the years. And I was thinking about calling it The Art of the Insult, and have on each page some of the lines that I used about, for instance, like Bret Hart, maybe a caricature of Bret Hart and caricature of Bret Hart's parents, and then the lines that I used during the situations, and explain all of that. And so if that flies, that'll be the next thing that I'll be working on.
That'd be great. Jerry, again, I want to thank you for joining us on WrestleVision. It was a pleasure. I mean, it was an honor to meet you. Grew up, before the internet, I read about you in the magazines and, the feuds with Macho Man and other things.
The guy Bill Apter I was telling you about, he kept my name out there in the magazines. And I every time I get a chance, I got to say and give thanks to Bill Apter, because he's over the years, he's worked with and edited many, many wrestling magazines. And like I said, I was just kind of a local yokel down there in Memphis, but Bill kept my name out all over the country, and then that gave me the opportunity to move on up to the WWE.
But again, it was a pleasure. And again, be tuning in every Monday on Raw to listen to you and JR. And again, thank you very much, King.